Hi, this is Dan Hickey. This is a 10-minute presentation delivered at the 4th Annual Digital Media and Learning Conference in LA, June 12, 2015. This talk is titled Where Badges Work Better. I'm going to discuss some of the main lessons learned from the Design Principles Documentation Project. First, let's talk about the promise of digital badges. The appeal of digital badges, of course, is that they recognize many different kinds of learning, and that learning and that achievement could be presented in many different ways, and this would lead to both new learning opportunities, but also new opportunities, jobs, new privileges for learners, and a whole new ecosystem. Well, that's where we started in around 2011. Arnie Duncan kicking off the DML 2012 competition. In 2013, Mark Sermon, Connie Yowell, David Theo Goldberg, there with Bill Clinton at the Clinton Global Initiative, announcing 1 million, 2 million digital badges. In 2014, the launch of the Badge Alliance. So where are we at now, about 3 years later? Well, most would argue that there's still a problem with digital badges. While they've been widely taken up, they're still not widely appreciated by employers, admissions officials at colleges, and therefore by many learners and also potential offers, job training in particular. What I'd like to do in this talk is talk to you about what we found in the Design Principles Documentation Project that could shed some light on the promise and the problem with digital badges. We studied the 29 awardees in the 2012 competition to see what insights could we glean from watching how these projects did something that had never really been done before. This is my awesome team on this project. We set out to work with these 29 very different projects. As you can see, if you take a look there, just remarkably different projects. Some served adults, some served children, some involved manufacturing and jobs, others was completely informal. What we tried to do was capture the so-called practical wisdom, what Aristotle called the phronesis, as these projects attempted to design and implement badge systems. We did this by organizing their efforts into 4 kinds of functions of digital badges. We looked at using badges to recognize learning, assess learning, motivate learning, and study learning. We started with the intended practices for using badges outlined in the original proposals. Then we looked at the enacted practices by interviewing projects once they got underway. And then finally we interviewed projects again after the funding was concluded for badges to see what sort of formal practices endured. This allowed us to track the emergence of more general badge design principles. After we had the initial set of practices, we did card sort, literally, to cluster them into more general design principles. Once we formalized those more general principles, we were then able to bookmark relevant external research to help move the community towards scholarly publication and to help them draw from the existing research and education that might inform efforts. What did we find? Well, the first thing we found, not surprisingly, badges worked better in some places than others. You can see on the left that 16 of the projects succeeded in building the proposed badge system outlined in their proposal. 8 of them ended up with a very different badge system. 5 of them didn't even succeed in getting a badge system up and running. When we look at the larger ecosystem around the badges, we concluded that 11 of the projects succeeded in building the ecosystem that they had envisioned in their proposal. 11 of the projects ended up with a different ecosystem, and 7 of them really didn't have anything that resembled an ecosystem around their badge system. We also found that badges work better where content and technology already exist. On the left, you see the so-called layered projects that only had to build badges. On the right, you see the projects that in addition to badges had to build technology and content. And you can see in green that the projects that had to build less, actually were more successful. Whereas only a few of the projects that had to build all 3 of those elements succeeded in implementing a badge system. We found that badges work better as informal credentials. The most obvious practices to add value turned out to be the hardest to implement. 5 of the projects intended to award formal credit for their badges only one of them succeeded. This was the Providence After School Alliance, and even they, after they implemented the system after 1 year, they concluded that the students still didn't value their badges enough, and they have paused that program to completely rework the system. We found that badges work better when they're internally valued. Projects struggled to gain external value for their badges. The Planet Stewards project, for example, succeeded in securing external endorsement from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. However, 6 of the 10 projects that tried to secure such external endorsements failed to do so. 8 projects tried other ways beyond external endorsement to secure external value, and only 2 of the projects were successful. We found that badges work better when they offer unique information. So some of the projects, they built a badge system that was in key respects redundant. So for example, 4-H, their badge system really replicated their existing trophies and ribbons used for recognition, and it appeared to replicate their existing social network around county fairs and school clubs. So when they ran into technological problems with their badge systems, things pretty much stalled out. Finally, we concluded that badges work better where learning is social and networked. 2 particularly robust ecosystems found other ways to take advantage of the fact that the learning in their spaces was highly social and highly networked to make their remarkably robust ecosystems around the social and networked learning. This was the Supporter to Reporters, a youth journalism project, and Mouse Wins, a networked mentorship program for young network apprenticeships working in their own school systems. So what do we take away from this? Now what for digital badges? Well, I'm convinced that we need to redouble our efforts to award formal credit for badges. I think that we should recognize that the existing credentialing system co-evolved with the admissions and recruitment practices, so there's a lot of invisible networks and tacit relationships that any alternative must contend with. So I think we need to be patient. Badges have only been around really for 4 years. The existing systems co-evolved over a century. I believe that we should work extra hard to exploit the unique features of badges to add value to them. I think that we need to get more robust evidence of actual learning and achievement, including student work, into badges in ways that allows viewers of those badges to drill down into the evidence at whatever level they need to. Stacks of badges ripe with evidence, I think, are going to make a difference. Finally, I think we need to align with other relevant developments and trends. Competency-based learning, stackable credentials, and credit for prior learning, particularly in the higher education space, are really taking off. They're very interested in badges. I think that an alliance with them would be very appropriate. I have some concerns about very reductionist approaches to each of these things, but I think there's a lot to offer. I think there's also a lot to offer in the sort of the high school arena as well, in being more specific about the competencies associated with badges. If you're doing this in the higher education landscape, the Open Badges in Higher Education project can help. You can reach me at DT Hickey at Twitter. Thank you very much.